Okay, so here we are at Leeds View IMAX on Kirkstall Road. I'm about to watch the new Batman film. My review is about to follow an intro video that I did just before watching the film, recapping on where we're at with the character, the franchises over the years, my kind of place as a fan, or not so much in some of the examples, but anyway, here's the intro and then we'll get into the review. Hello and welcome to Brand X Reviews. Today I'm going to be talking about the new film The Batman, but before we do, let's just recap where we're at. So, with these movies, I've been a fan of the Batman character for a long time, but starting from my childhood, really, where this character has been for me, really does kind of go over the history of things in movies. Now, I didn't really ever watch the black and white ones, the old serials from when I was a kid. I remember them being on video and so on. For me, my youngest memories were watching the 60s series. This was just before the Tim Burton 1989 one came out. Obviously, there's a lot of all this stuff, the best stuff that everybody remembers, and obviously, some days you just can't seem to get rid of a bomb. Now, like I say, the Tim Burton Batman was really iconic, and yeah, what else is there to say? If you've seen it, it's great, and if you've not, check it out.
You weigh a little more than 108.
Oh, really?
Let's go.
Now, my earliest memory of Batman in the cinema was 1992, Batman Returns, obviously the sequel to the last film, and this was the first one I saw. It was 30 years ago. And then 3 years later, they kind of soft rebooted it. It's still technically canon with things. Batman Forever in 1995. A lot more colourful and comedic.
Shut it down.
And my favorite vitamin, I might add.
1997. Oh dear. Then 2 years later, we had Batman and Robin, for better or for worse. This film's fairly notorious, but still, it's part of the franchise, I guess. Then nearly a decade later, Christopher Nolan came along and full-on rebooted Batman with Batman Begins in 2005. Obviously, this kick-started a new trilogy, the Dark Knight trilogy as it's known, with the film The Dark Knight in 2008. Probably a real peak for this franchise, I think. Then in 2012 we had The Dark Knight Rises. I love this film as well. Some people don't like it quite as much, but I thought it was really good tonally and kind of ended the franchise in a good way. I say ended the franchise, I mean that trilogy. A few years later we had Batman v Superman. They tried to recapture some of the Christopher Nolan magic, but to me I think they just failed. It was kind of dull, boring. Missed opportunity. And then there was the Justice League movie. I didn't even watch this, to be honest, so I can't really comment on it. I've kind of written off the DC movies at this point, but obviously now we have this new one with the film for 2022, The Batman. Really looking forward to watching this. This is just my intro. I'm going to cut back, having watched the film now, and I'm going to talk about it. So today I'm doing a non-spoiler video talking about The Batman, and I might do another couple of follow-up videos to this. I intend to do a spoiler video as well, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to sit with it for another day or two and think about it, and just so I can be a bit more mindful about things. So this video here, I'm just going to be talking about my initial feelings of the thing. When I say non-spoiler, I basically am going to assume that you've seen the trailer and the marketing stuff for this, whether it's other people's non-spoiler reviews or whatever. So I'm not going to give anything away beyond what I already knew going in. So obviously this film has done quite well from what I understand. It's done really well at the box office, which is a good sign that it's going to be followed up with at least another 2 movies, possibly some kind of spin-off TV series. I did a video talking about my thoughts on that on the channel a few days ago, if you want to check that out, and a bit of information there. But like I say, it's done quite well at the box office from what I'm understanding in its opening weekend. I'm recording this on a Sunday, the 6th of March, and the film has been out for a good couple of days over here in the UK. I went to see this yesterday with a couple of friends, and well, let's get into it. I wasn't disappointed at all. I really enjoyed this. I wouldn't give it a 10 out of 10, but I would definitely give it a 9, because it is up there. It was a very good effort, and it was a very good execution as well. It's not my favourite Batman film. The Dark Knight trilogy, all 3 entries in that, I feel I preferred them to this. I'm not saying they were better or this is better, because it gets a bit tricky. I mean, obviously I'm giving my opinions here. I mean, if those are my favourites, the Dark Knight trilogy, then I suppose I am saying that they are better. But trying to look at it objectively, I think the story of this one is maybe better than what we had in the Christopher Nolan movies. I do like a good mystery, and this one certainly has that. The truth, because obviously what's been, from what you've seen in the trailer, what's kind of been put out there by the Riddler is that he's going to unmask the truth about Gotham City. And there is something there. There is a story. There's like a hidden story that the people of Gotham, even Batman, Bruce Wayne himself, aren't aware of. And there are various plot twists. You think that the story has been unravelled and revealed, even to you as the audience. But then there'll be something, context, that's not quite being explained. So you'll take something as a bad thing, for example, that somebody did. There was like a corruption, for example, but then there'll be a plot twist and you'll see, well, actually the reason for that wasn't done out of greed or whatever. It was done to protect somebody, for example. So even though this truth has been revealed, there's another piece of the puzzle that changes things. And there's a lot of that going on in this, and it's done quite intelligently as well. It makes sense. It made sense to me. I've only seen the film once, and if I was doing a spoiler review in full, I could explain it because I understand it, having only seen it once. Because some of these films, you kind of have to, like, did I understand that properly? You have to kind of talk it out with other people, and then, well, actually, no, if you remember, and all that kind of stuff. This was to be honest, as even though it was quite complicated, it was easy to follow, I felt, because maybe it's just me. I sometimes get a bit confused with these mystery type things. But obviously it's Batman, so it's a kind of catering to maybe not the lowest common denominator of intelligence, but it worked for me. So I wouldn't say I'm all that high up there, to be honest. But anyway, so let's rein this back in. The movie is 3 hours long. That's another factor. Obviously, that was something that's been talked about quite a lot. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I didn't think it was a bad thing. I don't think it was necessary, to be honest, to have it as 3 hours. But at the end of the day, if it's a fun and enjoyable film, then more of it, the better, really. It gets a bit tedious when you're actually in the cinema for 3 hours. Because, especially when you get to my age, I mean, I said to the 2 friends that I went with, I said, there's no way I'm going 3 hours in this movie without having to, like, walk out for a piss break halfway through. Luckily, I managed to keep it to just 1, but 3 hours in the cinema is a bit tedious. But having said that, it didn't feel like 3 hours. I wasn't thinking, oh God, how much longer have we got, kind of thing. Because even when it's a film you enjoy, I tend to find especially in the cinema, when you couch, put it on pause for a little bit and take a break, it can be a negative in a lot of ways. But to be honest, it didn't bother me. I enjoyed it enough. Looking back on it, it didn't feel like it was stretched out. I know a lot of more sort of professional reviewers will usually talk about the editing and the pacing of a movie. I'm not pretentious enough to go there, but I do think that the pacing of the movie it was more of a slow burner than, for example, your Christopher Nolan films, the Dark Knight trilogy. They were quite 3 hours, but I think at least in one of them, was it The Dark Knight Rises, was close to that. I think it was like 2 hours 45 roughly. But the pace of that movie was a lot more happening. It was a lot faster. There was more, not just crashy smashy, as in like Transformers movies where there's something blowing up every 5 seconds, but there was always something moving. There was always a chase going on or shit was going down. This one, there's a lot of just kind of talking and plots and discovery and not necessarily lots of car chases and heists and bombs going off, that kind of thing, and countdowns. There is that in it, but it's not from start to finish. And I think that when there are those moments, it kind of connects things together. Your sort of slower paced moments are connected by a good balance of action and so on. So, like I said, the 3 hour thing to me worked because it gave the film a chance to really elaborate on things and get into things like character development, plot development, backstory, all that kind of stuff. And there's plenty of that in this. Nothing negative to say about any of the actors in this. Many positive things, to be fair. I thought that some of the characters were really well done. Some of the characters we were kind of seeing what we saw in other movies. So the Catwoman that you have in this is fairly similar to the Catwoman that you had in The Dark Knight Rises, in that she wasn't, I mean, you could say technically she's an anti-hero. She's more of an anti-hero than an actual villain, whereas obviously earlier iterations on screen, Catwoman would be pretty much a villain, whether it was the Michelle Pfeiffer one or the was it Lee Merriweather from the movie, the 60s movie for the 60s TV series. It was Julie Newmar and Eartha Kitt in the TV series, and it was Lee Merriweather in the movie. Those were villains, you know. Those very, I mean, maybe you're a bit sort of sympathetic to the Michelle Pfeiffer one, where she was ultimately a villain, whereas the Dark Knight Rises Catwoman, played by Anne Hathaway, was more of a sort of anti-hero, and that's what you get with this one, played by Zoe Kravitz. And she's very good. She's very attractive as well. Not to be a simp, but I think her kind of sex appeal is a big part of the character, because it always was. I mean, it's Catwoman, isn't it? You know, so it's one of those things. It needed to be somebody with a lot of that going for them. It'd be like, it works the same with guys. I mean, you if you get James Bond, for example, it has to be somebody who's very suave and attractive. And even as a guy, there's no denying that that's somebody. If it was me and James Bond and we were both competing for a woman, I think I'd just take my coat and leave. You know what I mean? That's kind of how it works. So depending on what kind of angle you're coming from, I think it was important that you had a Catwoman that had that sex appeal to her, which she definitely did in this. But also it kind of helps with the chemistry as well, because she's got to kind of play that off with the Batman character. I didn't think it worked that brilliantly, to be honest. That might be a negative. I didn't think that there was that much on screen chemistry with Catwoman and Batman in this, but there was enough of it to kind of go off. But there was, I think that their mission was kind of more important than the chemistry between the two of them. Whereas if you kind of go back to Batman Returns 30 years ago, Michael Keaton and Michelle Pfeiffer, who I think had actually they'd actually had a relationship in real life, so I think that kind of helped. But there was definitely a chemistry there between them, and what they had between them was kind of bigger than the actual story of the movie at points, where them two kind of discovering that she now knows that Bruce Wayne is Batman, and he now knows that Selina Kyle is Catwoman, and they didn't realise that was like a massive part of the story, and it was obviously their attraction for each other. In this, it doesn't seem to have as much of that. So it didn't feel as strong anyway, let's just put it that way. So I don't want to concentrate too much on that, but yeah, the other stuff, the stuff with the Riddler, I can't remember the name. Is it Paul Dano? I can't remember the actor's name. Was very good as a Riddler. It was very different to anything that we would expect to see. A lot of the things that he does in this, if you've seen the movie Seven, the Brad Pitt movie, if you like that movie, you'll like this, because there's some people have even said that this kind of rips that movie off. I don't agree with that necessarily. You could say maybe it's a homage, maybe, I don't know, or is inspired by. But yeah, there's some definite parallels with that movie, and in a good way. It is quite violent, this as well. It's different to any other Batman film that I've seen in a lot of ways. I'll try to wrap this up because I'm going to get more into spoilers in some of my other videos. I'm maybe going to do 2 more videos, but because I need time to kind of settle with this. But like I say, the actual movie itself, comparing it to what's come before, because I realise that's the context of this video that I'm doing. I think it borrowed from a lot of what's come before, including some of the animated stuff as well. So I can see bits of the Tim Burton 1989 Batman in this. I can definitely see that. Even some of the opening shots of the movie where you see the city, it did remind me a lot of that, the feel of it, the tone of it. It definitely had a lot of the Christopher Nolan stuff as well. It had a kind of real world vibe to it, but it dialed me even more in. I think the Christopher Nolan ones felt more like a Christopher Nolan movie with Batman, whereas this is more a Batman movie. I'd put it this way, in fact, let's just put it this way. Bear in mind, I love the Dark Knight trilogy. It's one of my favourite trilogies. To me, that feels like that's made for Christopher Nolan fans that think that Batman is kind of cool, whereas this is made for Batman fans. I would put it that way. You can argue for or against that, but I think generally speaking that is the case. So depends where you're at with that. But yeah, like I say, it borrowed a lot more from what we've seen before on screen. Even 60s Batman in some ways as well. Some of the things there, like I say, he works with the police a bit more in this. Obviously you get that from the trailer. I don't consider that a spoiler. The Batman isn't somebody that the police are hunting down like he has been in some of the other movie franchises. In this one, he's definitely, he can walk just out in the street and the press will be there taking photographs of him or whatever, and it's not like a big deal kind of thing. It's something that is just the norm in this movie. So little things like that are going to take some getting used to and some accepting as well, because a lot of people will think, well, actually, no, Batman would never do that. There's lots of ballsy things that they do in this that a lot of people will say, no, that's not right. They shouldn't be doing that. They fucked up. The movie makers themselves have fucked up. Not watching the sequel because it's pissed me off. I get that. I understand that. But at the same time, there's a lot of people that don't feel that way. So it's going to be very divisive, this. That's why I say I need to do more videos on this, because I need a bit more time to sit with it. And also, it's very difficult to talk about without getting into spoilers. I'm not going to do like a full scene-for-scene breakdown at all, but I am going to do a video where I get more into the specifics, because I feel I kind of need to do that. And I need a bit more time to just kind of sit with it. So I'm rambling on now anyway, so I'll leave it there. So come back maybe over the next week. I don't know when I do these, but I'm planning maybe 2 more videos. I'm probably going to do a non-spoiler review with the core over Skype, because he hasn't seen this movie, and I can maybe chat a bit about it with him if he's happy to do that. And then I'm going to do a full spoiler review at the very least, so check back. One last thing before I go. For the buff, there is a message from Moody for you right at the end of this video if you want to watch this. He insisted that he wanted to send you a video message for this video. As always, I put those right at the end. So stay back with that buff, because it's a very important message, and you have to be absolutely... well, I need to know that you understand the message and that you're happy with the terms and conditions of the message. So it's very important. Anyway, sorry to everybody else. I'm sorry about that. I had to mention that. That was a bit of housekeeping. But yeah, I'm going to stick with doing a few other videos coming up in the next week, hopefully. So check back. If you've liked this video, click like and subscribe if you're not a subscriber. And if you didn't, just sound off in the comments with some hateful messages. I'll be sure to love to read them, because it's always fun. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Right, a message for the buff anyway.
Yes, Buff, where were you? I couldn't see you today. Please come back. I need you.
There'll be plenty of leg grabbing as well.
Definitely.